Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon with the Brandon Wound pickups.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. So glad that you are straddling, well, that sounds weird. You're with us. I'll just say that. I don't know. I meant to. That went
I think
bad.
you meant to say riding the slider.
Yeah, sure. Anyways,
He might be on a horse. You don't know.
Yes. Anyways, look, I'm going to bypass all the nonsense. I've got somebody on the phone here who is renowned in the pedal world and was one of the first people that I reached out to say, I would really like you to be on the show. And we finally got him in. So who are you, person?
I am Philippe Herndon from Caroline Guitar Company.
Hooray. Now,
cheers.
Yeah, new cheers. It's kind of funny because I don't know how many episodes, almost every single time somebody says the 4 on the floor, either the Meteor or the Kilobyte comes up.
Yep.
Oh, man. Thank you.
When that is mentioned, we always say, and someday we're going to have them, on. And here you are. So thank you.
It's almost like, you know how Jimmy Kimmel kept saying, sorry, we didn't have enough time for Matt Damon today.
Yes, it is. It is. Between you and John Schneider, I think you are our running builder jokes. So, yes. Drink. Anyhow, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are just going to have a great time tonight. We're going to talk about some awesome pedal stuff. We're going to talk about some super fun guitar stuff, and we hope you enjoy it. For those of you who are not familiar, or even if you are familiar and just want some eye candy while you're listening, where can people go to see what you do, Philippe?
You can follow us on Instagram, it's Caroline Gico, or you can use there's the Twitter or Facebook or our website, carolineguitarcompany.com or carolineguitar.com.
Perfect. Now, how confused do people get?
You know, they do. And it's really funny because I started the company as a guitar company because we had a provisional patent on a guitar design.
Uh-huh.
And I just couldn't get it made. And so I started building pedals just so I started building a pedal just so I could have something I could say I was doing, because the guitar thing was just not happening despite my best efforts. So it was really just so I could say I wasn't just, oh, we still don't have a guitar to show for it, you know? So I did the pedal originally just to have some, what we call thunkware, you know, just something that you could show as physical proof of your work.
Right.
You know, just as something. And now the guitar part is almost like our Matt Damon joke. Like, you know, like,
yeah.
Sorry, couldn't get to the guitar this year.
You are the microwave of the pedal industry. You tried to build a national defense weapon and end up making something that warms up pizza.
Yeah, you know, or like or like how Nokia originally was a paper mill company or something like that. But then years later, they're making phones. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff about it. It's
You know, the history of invention is so interesting when you think about those things like whiteout and Velcro and Post-it notes and all these crazy things that they're total accidents. So neat. Anyhow, that's a different show altogether. So we're going to get into a little bit of announcements real quick. We want to thank Rode for providing our Rodecaster Pro, this amazing machine that
yummy,
that's sitting right next to me.
The buttons right now, Todd.
Keeping me company by myself over here.
I wish I could push the buttons.
I know. This is the good part about you guys not being here. And also for the Procaster mics, which have serviced us so well. Thank you so much, Rode, for doing that. I also wanted to call out, we get a lot of mail, or I guess you could call it mail, but it is essentially, people just writing in and sharing what they're doing. And we've got a very active Patreon, and we got something that I wanted to share. It says, hey, I just signed on as an executive producer. It's long overdue as I've exhausted almost all episodes available. I listen to you guys for hours in my shop while working on my side hustle, Grizzly Bay, and he makes shaving bristle brushes handles. Very cool. They're really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know that was a thing, but it's a thing, and he's very good at it. Anyways, so he says, over the last year or so, I've been looking at the guitar fascination I acquired as a kid a lot more seriously, and came across the guitar knobs at just the right moment. Hearing so much encouragement from you guys and the many exceptional guests you interview was just what I needed to get me over the tipping point. I really must make guitar things. While I've got bigger projects in the work, I've built a few pedal kits at your recommendation and freaking loved it. Rock on, gentlemen. So glad to be aboard. John Williams of Grizzly Bay. He signed on as executive producer.
That's cool.
So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
We love those kind of messages. So thank you so much for sending that. And thank you for supporting the show on Patreon. It means so much to us. So that's the feel goody thing. I love getting those. I really do. And let's find out what we had going on in our music world this week, everybody. We're going to start off with Tony, and then we're going to check in with Philippe.
Okay, well, let's start with me. So this past week or so has been, I'll call it the trials and tribulations of dealing with DH-gate. I know, Todd, you've had some issues. I've had some issues. Everybody's had some issues. And it seems like, maybe a couple of years ago, DH-gate was maybe a bit more straightforward. But I believe that their seller base has, I guess, some tricksters, maybe not so nice people have decided to get on there, and they figured out ways. This is, and It's like hiring Somali pirates to get a tour of the Bay. Yeah, you might get a tour, but so it seems like the latest scam going on DH-gate right now is they will list, in some cases, some ridiculously low-priced items. And it ties up, and these aren't huge sums of money, so it's not that big a deal. So it's kind of like roll of the dice. But, it seems like they have figured out a way that, I don't know if they get a portion of the sale or whatever in advance, but the things either never get delivered or they get delivered to a different address.
A random address,
totally random.
Yeah.
Now the good news is, anytime that I've had an issue, you can contact their customer service, and so far 10 times out of 10, they have within a few days refunded any payments that you made. But it's tied up for however long they think it's going to take to get to you. You have to wait until the date that the seller says believes that it will be delivered. And again, it's not a big deal because these aren't huge sums of money, but it is frustrating, especially if you're looking forward to getting something. So I guess the lesson that I've learned and can maybe share with our listeners is, if you do decide to go to make a purchase on DH-gate, be prepared. You maybe have a 50-50 chance of getting it, but make sure you keep all of the information, put it on a credit card that you can dispute if DH-gate can't help you. So there you have it.
We had the same exact experience. And just, can I share that experience real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to, it would literally mirror what you said. Unfortunately, the thing that I was getting, I was one of the suckers, apparently, because I saw this thing and I was like, I can't believe it. It's this cheap. And I got them. I can't believe it. And they were, what were they? They're country. It was like a Gretsch Country Gentleman.
Well,
ish.
That's a
type
stretch.
thing. Yeah, well, it looked exactly like it, and obviously
They
it's.
do that Martin. They do Martins too, man.
They do all kinds of guitar. Anyways, the point was it was so cheap. I think it was like $35. Right. And I was like, I was so excited because it was our 4th anniversary. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get one for Jared and Tony and me. And we're all going to have matching guitars and this will be neat. And they were delivered to some guy in Vero Beach. So screw you, guy in Vero Beach, who shystered me off of this. So
3 of them.
Yeah. And then they said, well, sorry, we don't know what happened with them. So
Too bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
The worst part is that we didn't get, a crap guitar delivered that we all get to have. So
and true. I mean, these things, the items that they sell are definitely not up to par with, the items that they sometimes represent.
Yeah, but the sentiment was, mine was.
But if you're looking at spending $30 or $40 on a guitar, go for it.
I would have spent more on you, but that's how much it was.
Well,
So,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyways,
You spent upwards of $45.
I might have. If you would have bought me dinner. Philippe, how about you? What's going on in your music world?
One little gadget I picked up, or one little piece of gear that I kind of was impressed by was I picked up a Gator Transit gig bag. I was all of a sudden short one case, and I needed something to put my Telecaster in. And or my previous Telecaster, my existing Telecaster, the Nash in, and through a Connect, I got one of the Gator Transit cases, and it's great. It's like it arrives, and it's like, oh, look at this comfy thing that my guitar is going to be sleeping in. It's just like great weight, and it feels solid, and it's like kind of has like extra stuff around the instrument, and kind of stabilizes the neck more than like a normal gig bag would. I guess it's kind of similar to some of the mono stuff in that way. And I was like, less than $100. And it's like, wow, this is so much, because I just remember it was always like, you either had hard cases or you had the worst nylon bag that was basically like a duffel bag that's been cut into a shape of a guitar.
Yeah, right.
Yes, yeah,
loosely.
It's like dangling. You might as well have it in a trash bag, right? And this thing is like it's like cozy, and I'm like, this is really nice. So I was impressed by that. And the other adventure I've been having, I think this is maybe explaining some of my funniness. So I have kind of an older MacBook, and I purchased I was gifted an Apogee 1 years ago to start doing some recording. And unfortunately, we're having this hilarious thing where it's like the Apogee was on a previous laptop for one version, and it's not recognized by this version of my Mac, and I can't upgrade it. But for some reason, this is the weirdest thing, like the sound app of the Mac will recognize the Apogee, but the Apogee Mac app itself won't work. And it's just like, okay, I've just got to do this as manual as possible from the old school thing, and it's just one of these hilarious things where like, oh, you just need to upware your firm grade. I'm like, I can't upgrade my firmware because it doesn't recognize
I like
it.
Upwearing your firm grade. That's kind of fun.
Whatever. Upwearing your firm grade.
Upwear it.
It's like an AC. It's like an.
That's what you're doing wrong.
It's almost like an AC/DC lyric.
Yeah. Yeah. Not far
Upwear
off.
your firm grade.
That works.
It's like,
Yeah.
so that's the funny thing is just trying to do a little bit of home recording and stuff during all this and laughing because I'm like, on another machine, I'd have Logic and just be not even thinking about this. But on this MacBook, there's this hilarious chicken and egg conundrum as to how I can get these things to communicate with each other.
Yeah. Tricky business there.
Yep.
Jared, how about yourself?
Well, it's kind of an interesting new gear story. So we got the band together and everything, and I think the way we finally found someone to drum with us that wanted to come back and drum with us is if we had drums there.
Yep.
So they didn't have to, do the unload, load drum thing. You know what I'm saying? That was my, because I would ask people from the past that I've known for 20 some years and say, hey man, you want to come drum with it? Do you have drums there? No. Nah, I can't, man. I'm really busy.
Yeah.
And then finally somebody asked, well, we got a drum set. And finally someone asked, hey, do you have drums there? I'm like, yeah. Like, okay, I'll be over.
Nice.
So that worked. So we got a set of green drums. I don't even remember the brand. I think they're called Crush. I'm not really familiar with that brand, but
sounds good.
They're halfway decent.
Did you get them on DHgate?
Yeah. Hey, Jared, lean in a little bit, will you, pal?
I may as well have. No, actually, they look nice. They're good. They're ash.
Is it the Gretsch symbol, but it says Crush from DHgate?
Might be, yeah.
Yeah. But during that transaction, my buddy, he's like, hey man, I got this guild I got in today. I bought from a customer. And so I showed Tony this guild and asked Tony his advice of what I should offer, my buddy for. And it's an X50 and it's got one P90 style pickup. It's not an actual P90, but it works and looks like a P90. And then it only has one on the neck and it's got an F hole and everything's there. It's super clean.
What's really cool about that? So the pickup that you're talking about is it's known in guild world as a Franz pickup, and essentially it's a P90. But the coolest thing about this guitar is it was still made when Guild was in Manhattan before they moved to Hoboken, New Jersey. So all of the early Guild factory in Manhattan was really made up of ex-employees of Epiphone when Epiphone closed after Gibson took them over.
Interesting.
So these were like really top-notch craftsmen that made the earliest Guilds.
So it's a really clean guitar too. There's not a lot of scratches, not a lot of dents or anything like that. There's no cracks. Whoever had this guitar didn't play it, because it came with the original flat wound strings, and at the bottom of the string where the string furl is, how you see all that stuff twisted. Well, that was all covered with red thread, so it was actually all threaded up and looked fancy and stuff. But the one thing that's wrong with those is the binding shrinks over time. So it has binding on the body.
It's like Tony.
On the front of the body.
That's exactly right.
Like my hairline.
Right. Right, Todd?
Yes.
And the back of it also, so all that binding shrunk, and it all has to be replaced actually. So, after you get that done, it's going to be a super nice, clean guitar. So
yeah, that's unfortunately the problem. A lot of Gretches suffer from binding rot. A lot of early Guilds have the same issue. Not every guitar. That's the weird thing. It's old celluloid, but for some reason, some of it rots and some of it doesn't. But you're right. Once that's fixed up, it's going to be a killer guitar. Yeah,
there's going to be overspray, but that's just the nature of it. It's kind of like the old Martins that don't have any truss rods.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot avoid a neck reset on those.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's
got to say, Brandon, about the drummer thing, I think you've done yourself a big favor.
I think so too.
Because I tell you, man, there's nothing like the nightmare of a drummer you don't know very well. You wait for them to set up all that furniture and start playing. It's like they're building like IKEA in your
right, like a triple bass.
Yeah, they're like there. They set up, and then you start playing, and you can tell within like 10 seconds. So like, oh boy, this is terrible.
Suck. Yep.
But then you have that sunk cost feeling where like we waited 45 minutes for this guy to set up,
and you're gonna lose the same amount of time getting him out of there.
Yeah, and so we might as well have a terrible. Yeah, you might as well have a terrible jam, and now if the stuff is set up already, you can have that freaks and geeks moment where he just shows up and starts banging like a maniac, and you're like, can you try something a little more straight?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, man, it's awesome owning most of the gear in the band. It's I do actually. I own all of it, and it's nice because they can never kick me out. If they do, then they're up.
Yeah, they have the same problem you have now. So, yeah, hilarious. Oh boy.
No, they wouldn't anyway. So I love the band. So yeah, that was interesting.
Cool. Excellent. For my personal week,
how about you, Todd?
Yeah, Todd, tell us all about
I thought I would just roll right into it and you could
do it.
Yeah. So for my end of things, I ended up spending probably too much time working on a music video for my band because we're not playing. Everybody who's out there in a band trying to work is trying desperately to still stay relevant and get people's attention and stuff. And it just so happened that when I was doing this, I'm using this app called Splice on the iPhone. I don't know if it's available outside of the iPhone, but anyways,
cool.
It's an app called Splice, and I did post it on our Instagram channel. It's one of these things that it has a ton of flexibility, and especially if you're like just trying to record yourself or post songs, or if you're doing a music video or whatever it is, like it allows you to do. I mean, I do almost everything that I post long form on our Instagram channel. I do through Splice, and I think it's a free app. I think, but super powerful. Ended up with a really cool video that I think does the song justice. It's got Vincent Price in it, so I mean, come on. And that's
Does he know that he's in it?
I don't think he knows.
No.
Yes. So, anyways, yeah, super a lot of fun. Kind of in the middle of the guitar stuff because you want to do the song justice. So, anyhow, that's what that's all about.
Is the name of the song Justice?
No, it's called "Drain Me" by the Valentinos. Thanks for the platform
opportunity.
there.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Tony.
He set you up.
Yeah, I like that.
He fed you a little pass across the slot for the one-timer.
There you go.
Is that a vampire song?
Well, actually, it is based off of the Lost Boys. So the Lost Boys was the inspiration, but I didn't want to put the Lost Boys in there. I'm like, this would be way cooler. So anyhow, so that's what that's about. Yeah.
Good job.
So how about some of this?
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the floor.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, Tony.
I am looking for a new patch cable, but I am so very, very concerned about capacitance.
As well you should be, mon frere. It just so happens that our friends at Tour Gear Designs make some mighty fine cables, some mighty fine patch cables to be specific. All with it, and
they're mighty flat.
They're mighty flat, actually. That's
and mighty small.
They should have a bumper sticker that says that we're mighty flat. Anyways, but check this out: the capacitance is 120 picofarads per meter because it's Canadian. So do the math on that because I'm not gonna.
What does that mean?
Exactly. That means they're really good. Is that fair to say, Philippe?
I think that's very good capacitance. It sounds like it's about 35 picofarad per square foot.
Perfect.
Or per foot. not square foot. We're not doing boxes.
Square.
I wanted this. How about per cubic foot?
It's a huge patch cable.
Cubic foot is, yeah. We're not making rugs out of that.
No, but in fact, these things would get lost in a normal rug. That is how small and flat they are, ladies and gentlemen. And for real, these things are fantastic. I just bought a whole bunch for my board. I know Jared's got some. We were so impressed when they were sent to us, and
they're very cool.
Very cool.
Definitely cool.
Recent guest as well. I think I should know the number of that. I think it's 181, but you go find that, and they'll tell you all about it. Super well made, super flat. The diameter of a jack, of the guitar jack, that's a very, very small footprint. So if you like your top mount pedals, you're in luck, because those are going to work really well there. You can go to tourgeardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs and get 10% off your entire order. That is pretty sweet. And they arrive like lightning fast. I couldn't believe how fast it came from Canada. So
yeah, and you know what really impresses me?
What?
I like the fact that they are human tested, and the person that tests the cable signs the card that is on the cable. So you know that someone actually tried this thing out. It just didn't come out of a massive box of somewhere and thrown into someone else's box.
That is correct. And it's it's their own design too. They didn't just go, hey, we're going to put our name on something else. They cool. Really worked hard on these, and it shows. These are outstanding cables. Everybody get over to tourgeardesigns.com/discount/the guitar knobs. Get your 10% and be super stoked on your pedal board. With that, Mr. Philippe Herndon, what is your 4 on the floor?
Guys, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's been funny because I think most builders are kind of hoarders.
Yeah.
I mean, it's grotesque. I was laughing about this with Chris Benson of Benson Amplifiers. I said, do you ever feel like some kind of just greedy dragon hoarding all your treasures inside of Tone Mountain? I'm just sitting I'm just lying around, and I'm like, oh, that's a vintage BK Butler tube driver.
Yeah.
I tripped over that. It's just it's out of control, and especially among friends. I think peak hoarding in our industry is probably Josh Scott at JHS.
Yeah.
Followed closely behind by Jamie Stillman at Earthquaker, and maybe Brian Wampler too.
Uh-huh.
But I'm pretty bad. And so there's so many newer boutiques that I love, but I decided I wanted to talk kind of the history of what kind of I love and what motivates me to this day. And so my first one on the 4 on the floor. So I'm going to set the stage real quick. It's like 1997, 98. And I was using one of those rack mount kind of things that did a lot of stuff. And it all of a sudden a cymbal fell on a MIDI cable, and I couldn't get it to do anything anymore. I was like, oh boy, I guess I choose one preset, and that's what we're on all night. It's going to be that kind of show. And I was like, okay, we're never having this happen again. So I trade some rack gear, a power amp, a cabinet, a bunch of stuff for an amp. And I'm like, I need a pedal. And I suddenly go through a whole bunch over the next 4 months because I miss what I was having from what I had before. And then I find what I wanted because I'd read that Kurt Cobain used this on In Utero. And I was like, I love In Utero. I love the way Frances Farmer will have her Revenge on Seattle sounds, just like dun 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 dun. And I read what he'd used, and I bought one, and it was a Sans Amp original.
Yep.
The Tech 21 Sans Amp original. And what I loved was back then, I think it's like what you have available to you, there isn't the cornucopia that you had now. So it's like everywhere you go, you can maybe get a Tube Screamer or an SD1 or maybe a DS1 or a Rat or a Big Muff, and they all have their shortcomings. But the Sans amp, you put that in front of a Twin. I mean, you put it in front of the cleanest amp in the world, and it's almost like the feeling the only way I could replicate this feeling is I remember when I played Madden 2007 and I had rookie Reggie Bush as my running back. And whenever you're in trouble, you could just mash down on that X button and get Reggie Bush through the hole. And it was just like, oh, when I'm in trouble, it was like when I had the Sans amp, it was like, you know what? I have enough gain. I have enough power. I have enough compression. And I think it's one of I think of it as the ancestor of the amp in the box pedal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just wonderful. That thing is just great. And it had like the 8 dip switches, so you could dial things in exactly as you want. And it's just a really versatile thing. I used mine for, I counted on that thing for a decade. Easy. It was great. Really good stuff.
That I had an original pedal too. And that, for its time, there were so many sounds that you could get out of that. And what was it? Was it Ren & Cuff that had a similar pedal that it was inspired? And I think they used 2 sets of dip switches. So there's like 16 switches that you can mess around with.
Yeah, but it's like hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds, maybe even millions. I think his son figured out there's like a couple million combinations of what you can
1 billion combinations.
It was crazy.
But the original Sans amp was, those are, and we've talked about this before. I mean, even some of their DI pedals and things like that, they were just like built like tanks, and they sounded good and still sound good.
Yeah. Cool. What do you got for number 2?
Number 2. So this was like something transformative for how I play guitar. And I remember first time I bought it, I fell in love with it at a store, brought it home, started playing, was obsessed with playing through the thing. And usually at practice, and my bandmates turned to me and said, maybe we need you to not bring that back because we feel it's making your guitar playing worse. And I was like, oh God, and I was about to stop using it. There I am clicking with the pickup selector. I'm sorry. I'll stop. It's terrible. It's just a habit. I'm like Richie Blackmore does that too, apparently.
Do you have like a pair of oven mitts or something you can put on?
I'm just going to maybe just I'm going to come have my kids come here and put some chewing gum on it. Just don't want to touch it. But the pedal that really changed the way I played once I figured out how to use it was the Electro Harmonix Deluxe Memory Man.
Yeah. That's another great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just, it was like a eye-opening thing into how I think a lot of players, when they first start getting into effects, try to just play what they do and expect the effect to ride along with them. And there's an art to playing with effects where you're interacting with the device and letting it affect how you play as well as what you do to the thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like a lot of people just sort of bully through, and when I first was trying to do that with the Memory Man, it was just bad. But then you're like, wait, this is what this thing does. This is what the repeats do. This is what the vibrato does. This is how the feedback works on this thing. This is how the preamp on the thing works, and it creates a cool pushback with you that I think kind of learns to take you out of yourself a little bit.
Yeah. That's a really good point, because I think if you aren't mindful of that and you just turn something on, you really do have to figure out how to, sort of dance with that pedal, not just have it on. You're going to get an effect, but it's up to you to make that effect yours, to make it work with you, not just for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's especially important, especially with digital or analog or digital delays. I mean, there is a certain there is the dance and the if you want to play along with the delayed signal and that sort of thing and keep things going, so that it does take some practice, and I think it's the end results can be pretty spectacular if you put the time in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even just letting the thing, I was laughing about this when we were doing megabyte development. But even on a pedal without tap tempo, you can get this. But I just remember laughing when we were dialing up dotted eighths. It cracks me up because I'm like, wait, is this what players do? Do they just hit like one note and it goes like that? Like, that's really what they do? Like, even like to me, I'm like, oh, I thought you'd play dotted eighths and then have the echoes set to quarters or something, and then it would overlay kind of double with you, but your strum pattern would be the dotted eighths. But they're like, no. What these guys do is this, and you're like, really? That's what they do. Like they just like pling, 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 and the device does the rest. You know.
Yeah.
But then it's like you come to realize like part of the majesty of learning how to use these things is to let the tools help you.
Right.
I mean, same goes for compressors. I mean, you try to play chicken picking parts without a compressor. You kind of sound like Rocky Balboa when he's punching the slabs of meat,
Yeah.
At best, you might sound kind of like the guitar player for Cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just going to sound like you're muting it.
Yeah. Whereas all of a sudden you like get a compressor and you're like, they set it to squish and you're like, well, what is this thing doing? And then all of a sudden you sound so clean and even.
Yeah.
Like,
how about that?
Oh, it's like country music is like an ice rink and you're trying to skate with like those shoes that look like tennis rackets.
Yeah.
like I brought out my snowshoes for the ice rink. Not really the tool for this, but if you skate, you might actually go pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's the Memory Man is sort of an introduction to like that, thinking about these things outside yourself. And the third one that is really kind of important to me, I'm just going to put my Stratocaster away so I don't play with that thing. It's like can't resist.
I think that's a good idea.
God.
And it's a Stratocaster, Todd's favorite.
I brought it just for you, Todd. Just for you. It's like they give the kids like the offer of like, you can eat this marshmallow now, or if you wait 5 minutes, you get 2 marshmallows.
Yeah.
I would have totally been that kid. I would have been that kid who'd eaten the marshmallow before they even get to the word "but."
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, no, we have to tell. He's eating ate the marshmallow already. So third pedal, in my opinion, like game-changing modulation device for me in my life is the old ADA flanger.
Ooh, yes. I actually just saw one of those for sale at Music Go Round, which is a local place down here. I mean, if it's still available. I saw it for a second and I was like off to do something else, but if it is, I'm going to grab it.
It's just so good.
Unless I grab it first.
Have either of you guys played through one of those?
I have not. It's been on the 4 on the floor though.
Yeah, and that one I do remember. I mean, gosh, I can't. I know I've used flangers before. I don't know if I've played that actual product though.
It's so good because it's like, I just remember the first time I played it, it was in a studio in Blacksburg, Virginia, and the guy had one. He's like, you need to play this. And I was like, flanger? I'm not trying to play Bark at the Moon here, And I'm not trying to be Jimi Hendrix or nothing,
Right.
And but I played it and I just was like, whoa, the sound. It's not the sound fidelity, it's the sound quality.
Right.
It's so good. Like, it's like, oh, and it's not like that hi-fi sound quality. It's more just like, oh, that's pleasant,
Yeah.
And it's just really, and much the same way the Memory Man can be, where you're like, oh, like I can lose myself in this, but it's more it's more subtle than you might even think it is.
There's a sonic quality to it that is once in a while you run across a pedal that has that extra, ghost in the machine that you're like, wait a minute, this isn't just the effect. There's something else.
Yes. The ADA is very much that way, in the same way like even an Echoplex kit is, in my opinion. Because like I remember just trying to explain it even, and I was like, I got one again because I missed it so much. And I brought it back to the shop, and my coworker Ben is there, and I'm like, hey Ben, you need to play through that ADA flanger. And he's just like, whatevs. And I'm like, no, you really need to. And all of a sudden I hear him plug into it, and he turns it on. He plugs in, turns on the amp, it's clean. And then he turns the bypass on, and he plays 2 notes, and he just goes, whoa. And I was like, I know, right? It's the sound quality
wild.
is so good.
What do you think those things are worth?
A couple hundred for. I mean, the 90s reissues are exactly the same as the 70s version. It's literally the same thing. They changed chips maybe a little later in it, but I mean, I got mine again for like under 200.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a couple of years ago, so maybe 250. But like, it was just so good, and it does like a cool chorusy kind of thing, and you kind of can control how much of that metallic flanginess is to the thing. And then I think it really affected me in that how I think about design, because like the first 3/4 of every knob is like really useful, and then the crazy stuff is towards the end. Mm-hmm. So it's like there's all this stuff that's actually in ways more subtle than you might first think, because I mean it's actually not that difficult to make stuff that's just like really noisy and wowy and like, whoa, look at me, like kind of that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of, but the ADA, it's like, have I been hearing this on every Cure record ever? Is my thought, like, is this what they're using on all that stuff?
Yeah.
Or like you hear it and you're like, is this what's on this song? Because it's like the chorus is like different than some choruses, and the flanging is really rich. And
now I can think of that as Fascination Street.
Very much that. Oh. A lot of the stuff on like on Disintegration and Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me sounds very much like that. They might not have even been using it, but when you plug it in, you're like, and you turn everything to 12 and start from there, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is all over that stuff.
Yeah. Wild.
That's great.
It's kind of a deterrent having some of these old pedals with the actual like power, the giant power cord coming out the back rather than a 9-volt.
Yeah. I mean, it can be because like I prefer the power out the back versus it running off of a 24 volt adapter though. It has like the wart. So it's not something that I might leave on my board all the time.
Yeah.
But
great for studio, I imagine.
Unbelievable for studio.
Yeah. Cool, man. All right. What's number 4?
Or you build some obnoxious giant Eric Johnson board where like the pedals are, you know what I'm saying? They're like, they're kind of stranded all, like across the valley, and your ADA is on like on a road case over there. So my 4th is the first boutique pedal I think I ever really owned. My wife bought it for me as a gift, and it kind of led me down this crazy road. And it is a 3MS, or now known as 4MS, Tremulous Loon.
Ooh.
And though I remember hearing a podcast with you guys with Brian Hamilton where he talked about from Small Sound Big Sound, he talked about the 4MS noise swash.
Yes.
And my wife discovered 3MS while Google searching, and she fell kind of in love with it. They were called 3MS before they were 4MS. And they got sued, or they got a cease and desist from 3M, like the Post-it notes people.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they were 3MS, and they had to change to 4MS. And back when they were 4MS, or back when they were 3MS, they did a bunch of pedals that were hand painted and built in junction boxes, like what you'd get from Lowe's.
Yes.
And stuff was crazy. This was just, it was wacky, and it was hilarious because each of them was signed by the builder who makes it, which we've adopted, and then a bunch of other boutiques have adopted. I think 3MS and 4MS were more influential than they were popular, because then they kind of, people bought stuff to have, but also to tinker with, because they put a lot of stuff on their website, like here's how you can mod it, here's how you can add an extra LFO to it, here's how you can change the clipping on this, and stuff was all over the place. And this thing was like, you opened it up and it was like spaghetti, and the circuit board was cardboard, like literal cardboard, with the components like jammed through it and then soldered and or physically tied together on the other side, like resistor leads like tied together. And when it worked, it was magical, but literally I would have moments of like, it would rain outside and we'd be doing an outdoor gig and the cardboard would get saturated and it wouldn't work. Like,
that's
it was
hilarious.
that. Yeah. But the 4MS Tremulous Loon or 3MS Tremulous Loon, I think is like a big part of I think I spent so much time repairing and modding and tweaking and learning on that thing that I think it kind of lit the fire for me and some other people in our industry, Yeah. I think there's other stuff like that, but it's a trip.
The 4MS stuff, at least the most recent stuff, I just did a quick check on. Yeah, that's a lot of buttons and stuff.
Yeah, another friend of mine had their like infinity phase or the phaser fleur, and I was like, wow, like it just seemed so bonkers. This was, around the same time Zvex was doing stuff, but it was like, good Lord, look at this thing,
Yeah.
But it's just cool stuff. But I think those four, are really, the ones that personally affect me in terms of like what I expect an effect pedal to do,
Yeah.
and how we interact with them, and just how I try to think of these things a little differently than I might have when I was just a player,
Yeah. That was a heck of a 4 on the floor. I mean, that's almost our whole show right there. That's pretty fantastic. No, it's great. It's great. What I want to do real quick is just do a big shout out to John Finnell, johnfinnell.com, recording engineer, producer, and master of mastering, audio mastering. And I'm currently at the Relay Recording Studio where John Finnell is proprietor of, and he's been very gracious to us and providing us a space.
Thanks, John.
So yeah, and he is one heck of a guitar tone capturer / manufacturer. So he's done an excellent job for me personally, and for many, many others. And if you are interested in finding out more about how to get your better tone, record your tone, then you can give him a holler. johnfinnell.com and relayrecording.com. So thanks, John. All right. Philippe Herndon, Caroline Guitar Company. We want to find out a few things about you beyond your 4 on the floor. Which I mean, honestly, I was sitting the little kid in front of the fire listening to Christmas stories right there. It was great. We're going to hit you with a couple like easy ones. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Jared, you want to throw him a softball?
Like what's your go-to guitar? Like is it the Stratocaster, or what's been your go-to guitar forever?
This white Stratocaster that my dad and I put together in 1991 from parts. It has like an 83 USA neck and a 91 Japanese body. Nice. And it had 4 or 5 different sets of pickups in it.
Sure.
It's just,
let's make it 6.
Yeah. No, I think because it wasn't a collectible, I felt free to mess with it.
Sure.
You know, it has scallops from 12 to 21.
Wow.
And it has 6,000 frets on it now. Not 6,000 number. It's not a microtonal instrument.
Right.
You know, it's not. I'm not
It's like
playing
a slide
alien
guitar,
frequencies. Yeah. You know, at that point, would it even really have frets?
Yeah.
It's just one metal slab at that point.
Right.
No, it has the 6,000 size fret, so it's like the
Okay.
P bass fret on the thing, and I think, but it's kind of funny because it has the Japanese body is mahogany, and it's kind of heavy. It's like 8.5, maybe almost 9 pounds, or it's 8 pounds 14 ounces. That's right. I remember weighing it once when I was bored and I needed content for Instagram. Like, here, I'm going to weigh all my guitars.
That's
like,
pretty smart.
I just got a postal scale. Check this out. You know, it's like, here you go, folks. Content. But yeah, and I think the funny experience when we talk about pickups is, so I was living in Richmond and I was frustrated, and then a friend told me to go see Lindy Fralin. Lindy Fralin grabbed the guitar and he went, "This is not a Stratocaster, Philippe. This is a Les Paul Jr. in the shape of a Stratocaster." And I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Here, I'm going to try 2 sets of pickups with you. Here, try this steel pole." And I was like, "Okay." So I play guitar with steel poles, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's what I wanted." And then he goes, "Okay, try the blue specials." And I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "What do you think?" And I'm going to try. And I'm like, "Let's just go back to the steel poles. Let's not even look anymore." You know?
Right.
So, but I think that guitar, the thing I like about it is it's kind of hot, but not super hot. And as a result, I think it affects some things with testing. You know, like when I test pedals out, I'm like, okay, well, how I play is I have kind of a medium heavy rhythm hand, and I play like this as a single note player and all this. And then we have, you know, other players. I'm like, okay, I know what I like out of this thing, but then the trick is then round up 10 other players who play differently than I do, because these things aren't made just for me. You know, it's sort of like, well, what can they tell me what can they tell me that will open my mind up to this, as opposed to me just seeing the forest for the trees, you know?
Yeah. That's
and I
smart.
imagine as a pickup winder, you must run into this a lot too, where there's like, you have your own attack, you know, in your own instruments. And then it's almost like you have to remember how you relatively, what kind of alternating current you're going to generate through a PAF or something, or a P90, versus like what some young Billy Joe Armstrong type is going to do, or what some guy who might play ambiently might do, you know?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, communication with the buyer is, you know, that's the number one thing you have to do. You have to just know what they want, you know? So.
Can we go back to the scalloped frets? Is that something that you started playing with scallops, or is it something that you adapted that guitar to?
You know, there was these shred guys. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and there are these shred guys. This was when like Pantera was still like a local band, you know, and they were like kind of glammy, like. And this is when like I think I was in Dallas when like Andy Timmons first got signed to that band Danger Danger, which is like an 80s like thing, like you know, And but there are these shred guys who would scallop, but only from like 12 up.
Right.
And I was like, me being an impressionable high school kid, I was like, okay, sure, let's try it. And what I found out was more interested in it was like, when I first got it, I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. But when I went to college, there's a really good guitar player I knew who was a really kind of more like, you know, more blues based guy, and not in a Stevie Ray kind of way, but more like Howlin' Wolf guy, or like into Muddy Waters and stuff like that, or Albert King. And he loved it because it's like, man, you can dig in when you do vibrato. And I was watching how he played vibrato. I was like, oh, that's what you can do with this. You know, you can like, because you don't get any string friction on your, like, you wouldn't want, in my opinion, it makes no sense to have it for chording.
Right.
You know,
Absolutely.
it feels awful. Like you're playing a sitar or something. Right. But for like up there, like, because it's a gradual scallop that's also mainly only on the unwound strings. So like you bend, you do half step or whole step and a half bends, and it's actually weirdly easy.
Well, the more pressure you apply on the string, you know, it's going to bend anyway from just applying a lot of pressure if you have scallop.
Yeah. And you're not running into the fretboard at all. So like you can kind of dig under.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain, but like if you grabbed it, you'd be like, oh, you know, but it's also funny because I don't do that with any of my other guitars because I'm like, my other guitars might have value. You know, like I'm not going to do that to my old SG or something. I'm like, I'll just deal. But yeah, it's funny. I think like I have. We were joking about Dragon living on Tone Mountain and stuff. I recently acquired a 76 Deluxe or Telecaster Custom, like the Keith Richards looking thing with the wide range in front and the single in back. And it's a blast, you know, just a cool as hell instrument. So totally different personality than what I normally like, because it like has the wide range in front, but the single coil on the back is your classic 70s wimpy 70s single coil.
Not good.
You know, like it's like a 5.8. You know, and it's like staggered as well. I'm like, oh great, you got this big honking G string. It's like bang bang bang. You know, because the pole piece is like, you know, the pole piece is like the tall kid in 5th grade. Like everyone else is like short, and there's this G pole piece that's giant. Yeah. But what's kind of cool with that guitar is, so the bridge position by itself was kind of worthless, but that 583 with the big wide range, like the middle position is pretty cool because they're so different. Like it's like really wide. So, you know, it's like, the stuff I would do on my Strat, I would never play on the Deluxe, and the stuff I do on the Deluxe, I'd never play on my SG or whatever, you know? Like I'm now appreciating how like different and weird they are, you know?
Well, speaking of playing, what from a stylistic standpoint, did you have somebody that that you essentially got your great inspiration of playing guitar? Like, is there anybody that you modeled yourself after or are still trying to?
I mean, I think we're all trying to play like Gilmore or some point for people my generation, but also like I grew up around the hair rock kids, and you know, that was, everyone tried to play like Van Halen a little. And I don't know, there's one album between the playing and the tones that I think I'm going to be chasing forever. And that album is called Din of Ecstasy. It is by a musician who passed away named Chris Whitley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He played like a lot of National Dobro stuff, and then he'd play like weird guitars, like melody makers with weird pickups and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's
Din of Ecstasy.
Yeah. And like the first song on there is called Narcotic Prayer, and the guitar tone, like I crank it and I listen to that guitar tone and I'm like, this doesn't seem possible. Does that ever happen to you guys where you're hearing and you're like, this tone, it doesn't make sense?
There's a couple that I've heard like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like it's like too defined to be like a bridge pickup, but it's too round to be a neck pickup, and it's not clucky to be a middle pickup. You know, it's like that doesn't make sense. And it's too distorted and compressed to be clean, but it's too clear to be a fuzz. And, and the tuning is weird. So it's not in standard tuning either. And I'm just like I listened to that album and I'm like, God, it's like, I'll chase that forever with pedals, with gear, with guitars, with amps or whatever. I just sort of feel like And I don't even know if I want to chase it. It'd be like the dog catching the car, and then the dog doesn't know what to do once it catches the car. You know, like I kind of don't.
Quite the tire, you know.
Yeah. Like, do you want to catch it or do you not? You know.
The journey is the reward.
Yeah. And would figuring it out like a magic trick, like make it less magical to you? You know, like if all of a sudden, like I was like in Whitley's, I met because it wasn't Lanois, it was somebody serious who did that album. I'll figure it out, but it was some serious engineer. And if that engineer, and it was Josh Freese playing drums, and if somebody told me like, oh, he just ran a JCM 800 and these two cabinets and a 50-foot coily cable and a middle pickup on a old recording like if I knew, I don't know if I'd really even want to know, you know?
Yeah.
I think, you know, that you raise a good point, because sometimes seeing behind the curtain is disappointing.
Yeah.
There's a video that I saw on Instagram that I shared with several players and friends that it's Magic Sam. He's a old blues player, and he's playing this song called Magic Sam's Boogie. And that's one of those tones where I was like, wait a minute. Now, granted, whatever captured it probably had as much to do with the way I'm hearing it as the equipment that is being used to play it, because it's old, you know, it's like 60s, early 60s stuff. But it's one of those sounds that when you get one of those things in your head and you're like, okay, now somehow I have to figure out how to make that sound, because it just gets in you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a blues guy, but I was just like, okay, if I could sound like that sounds now, but with my kind of music, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Interesting. Now we got maybe one more softball, and then I do want to ask, we do want to talk about your pedals and stuff.
Well, how about we don't like my pedals? They just sort of exist, you know? I love talking like this stuff, like a little example of another one that I hunt for. So like,
yes,
I remember I went to a local band show. Or not local. There was a touring band, a guy from Charleston who tours around a lot, and he was doing solo shows. His name's Nathan Hussey. He plays in a band called All Get Out. Great band. But he was doing solo shows, and he had this guy, Dave Ellis, playing guitar for him. And I go to see the show. Packed house, this great show. And Dave has this guitar sound that is so good. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to find out what he's using, right? And I'm excited for the end of the show for me to be able to walk up by the side of the stage and look at the board, look at the amp.
Yeah.
Because he's got like a telly. He's got like a thin line telly. Looks like a reissue, you know, with wide ranges in it. And he's got some amp I can't tell is old, and he has pedals, but he just sounds just like the hammer of the gods. He's hitting chords. He's hitting, right. Everything he's hitting is just like whoomp, you know. And show ends, and I sneak around, and you can kind of get to the stage from the side. I'm peeking around. I'm peeking to look at his board. And he catches me as he's tearing down. He's like, Philippe, what's up? How's it going? I'm like, oh, great, man. It sounded great. And he's like, dude, I used your pedal all night. Points to like one of our pedals. And I was like mad at myself. Like I was like mad, like, oh, of course you like that. You know, like, oh, of course I like smoking my own stash. Like I was like, you know who makes the best salsa? Me. Right? I felt like that Aziz Ansari skit about how he went to Kanye's house and Kanye was getting down to his own beats. Like, look at this. This slaps. You know, I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like, wow. Oh, yeah, of course I would think that sounds good. And I was like legit self-loathing for like a good solid couple days about that. Because I was like, man, I was so excited to like hear to figure out what this cool thing was. And then when I discovered like I had some part in it. Because, of course, I mean, there's the player and there's the, like, he had a cool old amp, an old Ampeg Gemini with a 15 in it, you know. Oh, yeah. He's got a board. Like, there's a bunch going on. He's got cables and what he's playing, content, all that stuff, right? But the part that I was intrigued to find out when I discovered, like, I had that was my work, was like, well, this sucks.
Well, I disagree. I think you should have been proud. I mean, if he was able to get a sound that you liked as a creator of the pedal, I think you should be proud.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was happy for him that he liked it.
Exactly.
I was happy for him that he liked it. And he had a good show, and I contributed a tool to it that he used. And that's, you know. But there's part of me that's just like. It'd be like laughing. It'd be like, I feel like Larry David. He's like laughing about some old SNL skit that he thought was the funniest thing ever, and they're like, "Yeah, Larry, you wrote that."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's like, "No, I didn't write that. No, that had to have been Al Franken. No, that was you, Larry."
Right, Al Franken.
It's like, really?
Oh man. If you have something new, you want to talk about something new that you got coming up?
Well, there's stuff in the works, but it's like it's all in the editing stage, and it could get to that point where I just edit it to where I hate it. And then it's like, I mean, well, I'll give an example. We'll talk about like one of the pedals I sent to you guys. So like, so there's the somersault that's on the pedal train that I sent you guys.
Yes, and on that pedal train is the Meteor, the Kilobyte, the somersault, the parabola, and the Hawaiian pizza. Just so everybody knows.
Oh, it was. I had some debate because I was like, "Oh, I could send some stuff," you know.
Yeah.
Well, there's these 5. I think we'll be cool with that.
Yeah.
So like, so it's somersault. Here's a funny story about that. So somersault, I spent like 6 months working on, and I could not get it right where I liked it. Right. And then we're like, screw this. This isn't working. We'll ditch that. And we started making the parabola instead. Mm-hmm. Right. We're like, we have to put out something. We have to put out a modulation device. Let's do the parabola. Okay. And so we get the tremolo and we feel pretty good. And we knock that out in a couple months. And I feel good. We put it pedal. Thank you. Yeah. It was like that was something I'd always wanted to do, and I did it. And then the next year, we spent all year trying to get Megabyte right, which is the tap tempo version of Kilobyte, but a little different. Mm-hmm. And Kilobyte, I was like, how? We're not going to get this ready in time for NAMM. Like, we had NAMM booked, and NAMM is like, all NAMM is basically until you go, well, even after you go, but in the months leading up to it, all it is sort of like this Zarlak pit in the middle of Tatooine that you're just pouring money into.
Yeah.
You know, like you're just like, oh, Jabba need more money. You know, and I'm like, oh my God, we spent all year working on Megabyte. We're not going to have it ready for NAMM. Like, this is like, because the only way NAMM gets justified is if I sell a bunch of megabytes at NAMM. And then I'm able to say, well, we threw a bunch of money into the Zarlak pit, but the Zarlak is going to vomit money back at us over the course of the year in the form of buying these things that we made for the Zarlak pit in January, right? So I'm panicking because Megabyte is not coming along as we want. And then one day at breakfast, I turn to my wife and I say, I'd like you every day this week to ask me what I've done about the modulator. Oh. And she goes, okay. And she's looking at me like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Like, literally, she's like, I'm just repeating words. Like, what did you do about the modulator today? So every day I come in and she's like, what did you do? I was like, well, we got the preamp right. She's like, okay. Next day, she's like, what did you get right? I'm like, oh, we got the LFO working right. She's like, okay. And then she goes, all right, you got right. And I was like, we got to sync up with the chip right, with the delay chip. The next day, she's like, what did you do about the modulator? Like, we got the mix control right. And suddenly, after a week, I'm like, holy hell.
You just needed a manager.
Pretty much.
We're done. Like this sounds good. It measures good. It looks good on the scopes. And I called John Snyder from Electronic Audio Experiments who collaborated with us on a lot of stuff. Great guy. And I'm like, I hate to tell you this. He's like, yeah. It's like, I think I got the modulator right. I think I got somersault right. You think we could build a board of this and have it ready for NAMM? He's like, you're kidding. I'm like, no, can we do this? And he's like, yeah, I think we can. And we get it. And he's like, this is good. I'm like, yeah, no, it's good. And literally it was done like that.
Wow.
And then like 2 weeks before NAMM, all of a sudden John calls me and the guy who's working, Scott McCombs, is working on our coding. It's like, oh, I think we figured out the stuff with Megabyte. So we'll have that ready for NAMM too.
Wow.
It's like, oh, like just that panic of like having to do something. And then all of a sudden you do it, you know? But like the reason it's tough for me to say what we have coming next is literally there's a lot of stuff that is like somersault where I'm like, well, this is dead. You know, like,
right.
You know, and then all of a sudden now it's like somersault is like, I got to say it might be my favorite pedal because it's like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, all it really needed was that kind of like really devoted attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know?
Now, I have a question. What did you do today about the modulator?
You know. Now, if you ask me what I'm doing about like a certain fuzz or something, I'll be like, oh, that thing, I haven't even looked at it. Yeah. I'm so disgusted. I don't even want to point.
What fuzz?
What fuzz? That thing is dead to me. You know?
Well, speaking of dead to me, that's not really a segue at all. All I'm going to say is that I was most surprised by Hawaiian pizza.
Oh, thank you.
That rocked my basement to death.
I like Hawaiian.
I was like, I got to get to these other pedals, but that means I got to stop playing this. How am I going to do that? So, anyways, I really appreciate the love and care and ingenuity and genius that you put into your pedals, Philippe. They are, as renowned as they are for a reason, and we appreciate you sharing your time with us and talking about this, for the last at least 5 minutes about your pedals. But honestly, I'm with you. I love just talking gear with you. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
That was fun.
Thanks, man. I mean, it's like these things are really cool. Like I fall in and out of love with the whole gear thing.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to, but at its core, it's like we get to live in this timeline where we have to make this stuff, and it's pretty cool to be able to like make it and have, people. I think of the delight. You asked us about this stuff at the beginning, and I'm like, the delight I take in something as simple as a gig bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
that's what the show's about, man.
but someone, but like, there's some designer at Gator who's like, I made these decisions.
Yeah.
That like, it's like, oh, this guy did this and this person did this. And that actually, like adds up to something that's like a genuine experience to somebody.
He could have been the guy who said, I think we should have extra neck padding, and 9 of the other people said, that's stupid. Why would we do that? And he's like, no, I think we really need to. And he fought, and he almost got fired over it. And then he hears you say, this thing is awesome. It's got neck padding. He's like, boom! Yes!
And then he runs out in the middle of the street and gets run over by a bus.
He does the Shawshank raise up to, in the rain and with his hands and everything.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
I mean, he probably fought like someone in accounting who's like,
yeah. You know what that's going to
cost an extra 25 cents.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about us being boutiques. Like you guys, like Tony and Jared know this too. It's like, I don't have to ask anyone at the board.
Right.
Like we did a vegetarian pizza version of Hawaiian pizza, literally, because we had, I kid you not about this, we had like a dozen people who were like, I want a Hawaiian pizza, but I'm a vegetarian and I can't deal with that pig on your pizza, on your pedal. It makes me think of death. And at first I was like, this is the dumbest, most sensitive thing I've ever heard.
True.
And then I was like, wait a second. Wait. They love the pedal. There's just something graphic about this aesthetic that they don't care for. They've not said it in a jerk way to me. They've just said it politely, like, hey, love your pedals, just wish it didn't have the pig on it, because kind of not really down with animal cruelty or animals dying so I could live. And I'm like, all right. Wait a second. I don't need to ask anyone permission. I can order a batch of pedals called vegetarian pizza, and we can tweak the circuit a little bit, and we can make a bunch of those, and we'll see if they sell. And if they don't, big deal. Like, whoopity-whoop. It's like think of how many ideas, like even a successful company, think about Google Hangouts.
Yeah. 90% of Google products don't do anything.
Yeah. That's like
the
most successful company in the world. It's just, and I'm like, oh, well, if I do this and it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But whatever, we'll make vegetarian pizza. And we made them, people liked them, and that's cool. Nice. And I was like, all I had to do was this, and it made some people happy, and people bought pedals, and people had a hang up about something or were uncomfortable about something, had that resolved.
Well, and as a result, some new different sounds were made that may not have been.
Sure.
That's cool.
Think about like the first person to go to Ford and say, hey, that's a cool pickup truck, but I really wish it had a back seat so I could put my kids in the truck, because right now it's just front and you can't have kids all just in the front seat. It's just not safe. And only seats 3. And, if we had something like a cab, an extended cab in the back seat, I then don't have to drive my family car. I can drive the truck and then take the truck to work. Like, if Ford was run like a boutique pedal company, you can totally picture the engineer Ford like, I'll totally ruin the pickup. Doesn't understand.
Well, you could have bought different color Model Ts back in the day.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. There was one orange one that came out.
That's it.
Speaking of one orange one, Jared, let's segue into some happy fun times. Some more happy fun times.
I am ready for it.
And Philippe, this one I did craft this one. Number one, out of a real live-ish situation, but also because I think you might actually really appreciate this.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's come time for the segment called Would You Rather? All right. This week's Would You Rather. So you're walking down the street on the way to your gig, and you forgot your contact lenses at home. You only have your dark prescription sunglasses, Todd.
Yep.
You find yourself on stage, and it's a pretty dark gig, right? It's not lighty at all. There's no brightness. So how do you navigate your pedal board? Would you rather have all black pedals, dimly lit, but multicolor LEDs to signify which is which, or all white pedals, but with all blindingly bright white LEDs?
Ooh. Ha ha. So, yeah, I have a couple. I think we all probably have one or two pedals where you turn it on, and if you look at it, it's like I think I just looked at the sun, and now I can't see anything. I did show up to a gig, and I thought I thought I had my. Anyways, I ended up having to wear my sunglasses that were prescription, and it was super dark, and we were projecting film. I couldn't see anything. Nothing. I couldn't see a thing. and somehow I got through the gig, but navigating the pedal board was an absolute nightmare, of course. So, yeah, I won't be doing that again. But anyways, Tony?
Well, I don't think it really matters because I'll just have my my tech backstage take care of everything.
You have Dallas. You have Dallas under the stage. Dallas under stage, turning things off and on for you.
Absolutely.
All right.
No, I think, boy, I'm guessing if the pedals were all white, you would be able to at least see what they are. And,
While they're off, yeah.
Yeah. But here's the other part of it. If it's your pedal board, you kind of know where everything is anyhow, right? So
Pretty dark.
it's pretty dark. And you got sunglasses on.
Yeah.
I think if I had to choose between the two, I would say that probably the different color LEDs would probably be the safer choice. But that still doesn't eliminate, any. I mean, if you can't see where the settings are on the pedals, that really wouldn't help either.
It's difficult.
I don't like either choice.
That's the beauty of a would you rather.
It is.
All right, I'm gonna go with the black pedals, multicolor LEDs.
All right,
And
Jared?
hope that the pedals are set right.
Yeah. So I currently have about 5 pedals right now that I'm running. So that's quite a bit to, manage. I don't care if it's 3. I mean, if it's super dark and you can't see, you're screwed, This was an easy one for me. I'm definitely going to go with the black and with the multicolored, because you could, color to effect is easier than just all white and then all the same LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
LEDs, LEDs.
Leads.
So
Okay.
yeah, I definitely going to do the multicolor. That's the easier choice.
Okay. How about you, Philippe?
I think I actually have had a situation almost exactly like this.
Nice. Huh?
Yeah. Pre-COVID, I was playing in a Foo Fighters tribute band. And we played in Wilmington, North Carolina, and it was outside after it had been raining all day. And it was in the summer, and it was 95 degrees to 100 degrees and just ridiculous humidity, where there's we were playing outdoors and there are puddles everywhere. And it's just like, you're basically being steam cooked like a dumpling, right? And
Hang on, Jared might salivate on you. Be careful.
yeah, seriously, they're going to bring me out with dim sum. It was, pieces of me. It was a mess. And I'm just like sweating through everything. And I realized I'd forgotten my contacts. And I'm like, okay, I'm in my glasses. And now I'm sweating like the nerdy dude, like some bad teen sex comedy from the 80s. Like my glasses are all fogged up and I can't see anything. And my baseball hat is all like dripping down my face. And I'm like drenched in my hands. I was sweating so much. You know how like if you put like a glass of water on a wood table without a coaster and it puts like sweat marks into the table. Yeah. I was doing that to like my Nash. My Nash with like the thin nitro finish was like getting like cloudy.
Wow.
I've never seen this happen before. And I'm just drenched and I can barely see through my glasses. I'm just like just a mess. But I'm going to go with the contrary opinion to the other dudes. I think it helped me that the pedals were different colors. Just because then you're just sort of throwing your foot in a direction of a thing.
Mm-hmm. And these pedals are all white with all white LEDs.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all white with all white LEDs versus different colored LEDs.
Yes. Versus black pedals with different color LEDs. Or all white with the blazing like sun intensity LEDs, white LEDs.
Okay, I retract my comment.
That's what I thought.
You go black with a different color. LEDs.
Oh yeah.
You go black with different color LEDs. And basically at that point, if you're like, I just was like, I'm using this one distortion pedal all night. That's what I'm going to use. You know, like I'm going to ride the volume control because I cannot risk this being turned off and on and me like missing and like slipping on all my sweat and wiping out like Chevy Chase's Gerald Ford SNL. I'm just like and falling down all over all my God. Like it was so disgusting. At one point I took my baseball cap off and I kind of flung it, kind of wringed it out from sweat. And this poor girl who was like 25 feet away from me as a photographer got hit by like the sweat that had collected in my hat. Oh. And she just like, I saw me do it and she kind of like, like I just like hit her with a water pistol. And I was like, I'm sorry. Like just you know, like I'm like cleaning the dew off my glasses so they keep fogging up and sorry, lady. You know,
it's hard to rock and roll with glasses. I'm with you on that.
I give it up to Kirk Pengelly of NXS. That guy could rock the nerdy look.
Yes, true.
Good. Like that was those. My glasses are kind of like his. Like I have like a 6.0 prescription, so they are thick. Yeah, you know, and like I basically was like, I'm in Pengelly mode. I'm just going to act like I'm in NXS tonight.
Awesome. Well, look, guys, I'm going to make it unanimous. I'm going with the multicolor LEDs as well. At the particular show that I was at, I had to ditch the sunglasses because I realized I was more liable to fall off the stage if I didn't know what I was doing. And after mashing my teeth into my giant Shure 55 mic at the time, because I didn't know it was just right. And so I was like, okay, I got to ditch the glasses. Now I can't see anything. But I could generally make out roughly what my pedal board was doing. So anyways, it was an experience, but that's what I'm going with. And I would just ask that, like, hey, pedal builders, like, intensity on the LED. It's a sensitive thing. We got eyeballs. If we can see it, you know, dial it down from the sun. Anyways, okay.
I have to admit, I'm guilty. I've made some blinding blue LEDs sometimes.
It's the white ones. The color ones, if it's super bright, it doesn't bother me as much as the white ones that are just like, it's like I'm looking at Polaris. I'm like, So,
yeah. I have to admit, I stole something from Catalan Bread and Jack DeVille, Mr. Black on this, which was, I befriended Jack and I was like, oh, these are called Fresnels, and they're basically diffusers. So that's what's on.
Yeah, I saw a couple of these. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of helps. It's just as a design thing because it reduces the direct intensity and then widens the field.
Yes.
So you see your color a little better from the side.
Yeah.
But it's not as intense head on. So,
yeah. Kind of like an amp jewel.
Yeah.
Except different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was fun. Let's see. Tony Baloney. Philippe, we're going to thank a few people and then we're going to get out skis. Okay.
Fantastic, guys.
All right.
All right, Todd. My gift to you today is to keep it short and sweet.
Whatever he said.
I'll go with what he said. Yeah. I'll have what he's having.
Yeah. All right, Tony.
So at this point of the show, we do have to thank a special group of people. These would be our executive producers. And one might be asking oneself, what is an executive producer and how can I become one? I want you to go over to patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs and check out a couple different levels in which you can participate and become a patron, a sponsor of this very podcast. Your great rewards are things like barefoot buttons and t-shirts and keychains and all kinds of prizes and giveaways. Oh my goodness, the giveaways.
Oh yeah. Got more coming up.
Check them out. But the thing about executive producers, they get all that great stuff. But Jared, what happens?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read these names as quickly as humanly possible because this list
Keeps growing.
It's growing, and that's great. But
That's a good thing.
I'm going to be mindful of how much time I take up. So, without further ado, thank you to Mr. Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, John Daly, Chris Carney, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Chris Heidel, John Esterle, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Brett Alexander, James White, Matt Hart, Liam Martin, James Pennington, Richard Kendall, Levi Main, Ty Carmen, and welcome aboard new executive producer, John Williams.
All right. Welcome, John.
Welcome. But wait, there's more because the next little step above the
Big
executive
step.
producer.
It's a big step.
It's a big step. But the greatness of being this level, the Grand Poobah level, is you get a fez to wear whilst listening to the podcast.
And a Guitar Knobs pedal board flashlight from Copper Sound.
Yes. The gifts just keep on giving.
And more.
Let's thank these special Grand Poobahs. Mr. Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Cody Lane, Cody Foster, Sean S. Tommy Manasco, Mark Garton, Christopher Marshall, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys. And we welcomed these two last week, but let's welcome them again. Our two newest Grand Poobahs, Zach Melton and Tim Novak, who upgraded from just a mere executive producer, now is a fez-wearing Grand Poobah.
Listen to how excited those kids are, too. Those kids are really excited. We really need to. Yeah.
They got some fezzes.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, all of you who are helping to participate in our show and make it, just help it to keep it going. That's how we feel. It's awesome. So, hey, everybody. Philippe, where can people find you?
We can be found on the internets, Caroline G Co. on Twitter and Instagram, and CarolineGuitar.com for the website, and Caroline Guitar for the Facebook.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Fantastic. And Tony Baloney, where can people find you?
Go over to pickguardian.com. Check out some of the stuff I have available there. But as I've said in the past, 90% of what I do is custom work. Shoot me an email. Let me know what you need. We can talk it over and come up with something great just for you.
Awesome. Jared?
I was just at Tony's Funhouse today. He's got tons of plastic, folks. So, if anybody's looking for some pickups, you need them wound a certain way, you can't buy what you're looking, what you want, just get a hold of me. I'll see what I can do. Go to my website, brandonwandpickups.com, and or give me a call, give me an email, give me a message on Instagram or the Facebook, whatever, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Awesome. You can send me a DM on Instagram at Guitar Knobs, or shoot me an email, todd@theguitarknobs.com. We love to hear your stories like we were sent today. And please send us your Would You Rathers. We'd love to read them because they're super fun. So,
sing it.
Yeah. Hey, Philippe Herndon from Caroline Guitar Company, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Woohoo!
Guys, it was a blast. It was a long time coming. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
It was much fun, and I know that people are going to love this one. So we're going to let you go. Everybody have a great guitar week and subscribe.
Yeah. Ooh, that's going to be pungent.
What?
Yeah. Makes us glad we're not in the studio with you.
Yeesh.
Meteore.
He just said, he said, hey, using potty beyond soon. That's funny.
Meteor.
Yeah, but Jared's like,
me.
but with an A-I-E-R.
Meteor.
You've ruined my train of thought. The parabole.
A parabole.
The somersault.
Ugh, that would have been punishing. Good Lord.
It's this Topo Gigio.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
I don't know what his lineage is. A lineage. A
Well,
lineage.
Isn't that the story behind the story?
No.
Hey, I'm gonna use the bathroom for a second. Just want to let everybody know I got to use the potty.
All right, thanks.
All right. Felipe.
I use the potty.
I like the party.
I don't think he's Italian.
Well, he is now.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.